Hello. So I'm going to be talking about virtualization and the core components of a virtual machine and how those can be utilized in a work environment. So when we think about virtual machines, we need to think about it as though it is a computer that exists as a software but behaves much like a physical computer. A virtual machine uses resources of a physical computer, but those resources are managed by virtual software called a hypervisor. The core components of a virtual machine include the virtual CPU, memory, storage, network interface, and operating system. First, the virtual CPU provides the processing power that the virtual machine needs to run applications and perform tasks. The physical host provides the actual processing resources, while the hypervisor allocates those resources to the virtual machine. Second is memory, virtual memory, or RAM. Just like a physical computer needs RAM to run programs, a virtual machine needs memory assigned to it. For example, I could configure a Windows Server virtual machine with a specific amount of RAM depending on what services the server needs to run. Another important component is virtual storage. A virtual machine uses virtual hard disk to store its operating system, applications, and files. From the virtual machine's perspective, this works like a normal hard drive, even though the storage may actually be a file or a virtual disk that is located on the physical host. Yes. The virtual network interface is also important. It allows the virtual machine to communicate with other computers, and other servers and networks. The hypervisor connects the virtual network adapter to a physical or virtual network, allowing the VM or the virtual machine to communicate just like a physical computer. Okay. Let's see if I'm not forgetting any part on my notes. Yes. The virtual machine needs an operating system, such as Windows or Linux. And the operating system interacts with the virtual hardware as if it were running on a physical computer. The hypervisor is what makes all of this possible. A hypervisor manages the physical hardware. Excuse me. The hypervisor manages the physical hardware and allows multiple virtual machines to share the same physical resources. This means that one physical server can potentially run several separate virtual machines. In a business setting, I would leverage virtualization technology because it can improve resource utilization, flexibility, testing, disaster recovery, and scalability. For example, instead of purchasing a separate physical server for a... Hi, baby.
Hi, Mama.
Mama is in the other room. For example, instead of purchasing a separate physical server for every service, a company could have one physical server running on multiple virtual machines. One virtual machine could run Active Directory domain services and DNS, which is domain name server, and another run a file server, and another could be used for testing. Each virtual machine would operate independently even though they are using resources from the same physical machine or physical host. Virtualization also would be useful for testing and development. An IT technician could create a virtual machine instead of an operating system or application and test configuration changes without putting the company's production environment at risk. If something goes wrong, the VM can be restored or recreated without affecting the physical computer on a production system. Okay. Another advantage is disaster recovery. Virtual machines can be backed up and moved to another host more easily than rebuilding an entire physical server from scratch. This can help a business recover its services more quickly after a hardware failure. Virtualization can also make it easy for a business to scale. If a department needs another server, the company may be able to create another virtual machine instead of purchasing and configuring another physical server. From my experience working with virtual machines in my IT studies, I have seen how useful virtualization is for learning and practicing real-world technologies. For example, I have worked with Windows Server and Windows Client virtual machines, including Active Directory, networking, and server configuration. This allows me to practice building and troubleshooting an environment without needing multiple physical computers. Overall, I would describe virtualization as a way of creating flexible and isolated computer environments while making better use of a physical hardware. In a business, I would use virtualization to improve efficiency, simplify testing and management, support recovery, and provide flexibility as the organization's technology needs change. So I appreciate your time and your attention, and I hope this has been fruitful for you to learn as much as it was for me to make. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the next one.